air after last night's complete disaster meltdown by my internet service here in our area around Ocala tonight. I thought I may never get back on the air again. I spent 4 hours yesterday. I upgraded my Wi-Fi. I did everything I could possibly do, and I couldn't get on the air last night because guess what? I had no internet. When you get no internet on my business, you got no program, as Ali Peek Wilbur knows so well. Ali, it's good to see you. I know you have a lot of good news tonight.
I do. We had a very big pickup today, but I'm glad your internet is fixed and you are back up and running.
Ooh, I wish I had some music I'd play it. All right, let's do this thing. Stand by. We're going to do this. Ali Peek Wilbur. I've got Tony Barnhart in a bit talking about, well, guess what next week is? It's SEC Media Days.
Yep.
I've broken it down into quadrants, the teams. We'll see what Ali's got. And, of course, and Kyle, our intern and friend, will be Kyle Curtis. Will be joining us about talking about his series he's starting on ranking the Sweet 16, as he calls it. So stand by. Believe it or not, the Buddy Martin Show is back on the air.
Buddy Martin, call him up and tell him what you're thinking, but be kind because he's doing the best he can.
Better, stronger, faster.
Mama says that alligators are ornery because they got all them teeth but no toothbrush.
Hey, what if the voice calls while you're gone?
Take a message.
Bye.
You ready, champ?
I'm ready for this my whole life.
I'm incapable of small talk. But that's why you love me, right?
Kind of intimidating to be in the presence of so many great athletes.
Evening and welcome to the Buddy Martin Show. That would be me. I'm Buddy Martin, heard 4 nights a week, at least, sometimes more, depending. The program tonight features probably our favorite guest hosts that we've had, I don't know, been maybe 6-7 months now. Ali Peek Wilbur, who does a terrific job on her peek inside the Gators. And Ali, it's great to see you. Like I said, I was a little worried I'll ever get back on the air again after last night. It's a modern miracle of something. I'm back. And glad to be with you. And let's get right into it because Gator fans are getting buzzed a little bit right now. They got some news today. They got a little bit more buzz. What happened?
Yeah, so Florida got a commitment from Miles Johnson. This guy is a linebacker, 6'1", 220 pounds, 4-star guy on 247 Sports, 3-star on 3. I kind of expect that to increase, but he was committed to Alabama. He committed to Saban in October of 2023, recently decommitted. UF, basically didn't let up. And he is incredibly fast. He is versatile. He plays football, but he also runs track, plays basketball. I do think the reason that he's a 3-star for on 3 is that he was injured his junior season. So he's healthy. He'll be back for his senior season. I expect his stock to rise. And listen, if Saban wanted him, it's good enough for me.
Yeah, you mentioned that on your podcast. Also, that the guy is an athlete, in addition to being big and strong and very fast. You said faster than maybe some of his times have indicated. Talk about his 100-meter time.
Yeah, he runs a sub 11-second 100-meter time, which is smoking, particularly for a linebacker. This is a guy. He's pretty good size. 20 right now. And again, I expect second he gets into our weight room, right, and on our nutrition program and stuff, he'll put some weight on from there. He's got a good frame. So that is very fast for that size. That is definitely good speed for a linebacker. Trying to think of the last time, I think we talked about this. I might have talked about it on my episode. If not, I just thought about it beforehand. But I was trying to think of the last time we had a linebacker that fast. And it's a long time. The guy that comes to mind for me is Earl Everett, which, that's 20 years at this point. So rare to get a linebacker with this speed. So, it's a great pickup.
It is. And speed is something that you can't get enough of. So why was he only get a 3-star? Or somebody rated him 4, I noticed.
Yeah, so 247 Sports has him as a 4-star. On3 has him as a 3-star. My hypothesis on that is he was out his junior season with an injury. So, a lot of your grade comes from your film, your junior year. So I think once he plays his senior year and stays healthy, the bulk of your star ranking comes from your senior season. So I expect him to be a 4-star by the end of the year on 3, as long as he stays healthy.
Yeah, you mentioned one of the things, the persistence of Ron Roberts and others in recruiting, staying with a kid for a long time has paid off.
We have talked about this a lot, just about all different kinds of kids, but there used to be no prize for second place, right? In recruiting, it didn't pay off to be a hat at the table, but it does now in this NIL era, because things change. And if that relationship was maintained, it could be you that he signs on the dotted line for. And I think that's what happened here. Nick Saban, he committed to Saban last October. That was before Saban retired, obviously. And, things are different now at Alabama than they were in the past. And I think Florida continuing to stay on him. And I think the addition of Ron Roberts, obviously, when he committed to Alabama, Ron Roberts did not work for our staff. So I do think, staying on him, the addition of Roberts, the changes that happened at Alabama, all of those things played into Florida's favor.
SEC Media Days next week. Everybody's starting to break the teams down.
Yeah.
Looking at some football seriously from the X's and O's standpoint a little bit now. All the NIL hubbub and all the stuff happening with that. Still going on, but not as much. And now it's time to get down. And as Billy likes to say, put the ball down pretty soon, So next week we start getting a little dose of that. I think Billy speaks on Wednesday, as I recall. We'll see you don't usually get too much news out of that. Where you get it is the sidebars and the kids that come, and they pick 3 governors to take with them up there at SEC Media Days. Don't expect much news, but it's the first swallow of spring.
Yeah.
It means it's going to be real pretty quick. So people are starting to put pen to paper and say, let's look at these teams. Let's rank these teams. And the bottom line is we don't really know about a lot of these teams.
Sure.
There's so many nuances to the squad, the roster building, what's happening. Everybody judges the quarterbacks, obviously. We know Georgia's loaded, etc. So, there's a lot we don't know that we're going to find out about, because this is also an endurance contest. By the time you get to December, your tongues are hanging up and you're banged up, and want to is a big part of what you're doing there. So let's start out tonight. I know Kyle Curtis is starting his series tonight, 1 through 16. He's going backwards. He's starting with Vanderbilt.
Okay.
What can you say about Vanderbilt? First of all, the obvious question, does Vanderbilt really belong in the SEC? No. Should Vanderbilt leave the SEC? No. I think you need an outlier. You need somebody like that to kind of hold you accountable through your academics, et cetera, et cetera. Right. The standard, and even though they're never going to be I won't say they'll never win a championship. They could. Doesn't look that way. And Clark-Lee may have a good defense, but he's got to score some points. So let's start with Vanderbilt tonight. Obviously, I broke them into quads. They'd be in the last quad. And what can we say about Vandy?
I think, first of all, I think if Vanderbilt was in almost any other conference, they'd probably win a heck of a lot more ball games. Vanderbilt's not a bad team, and Vanderbilt is talented enough that they will upset people as the season goes on. Are they going to win 8 games? No. But is there going to be at least one Saturday where we're like, whew, what did Vandy do? 100%. We've been that team that they've upset 2 years ago, right? And Vanderbilt has historically given Florida problems too. Think about that, where when Jay Cutler was the quarterback. I mean, Vanderbilt has been a thorn in Florida's side in the past, and I think lots of teams view them as a thorn in their side. They are not a doormat. They are not a gimme win for sure.
I don't know. They haven't been a dagger in the heart, but they haven't been a thorn in the side.
Exactly.
There have been some games. I mean, back when Eric was playing, and prior to that, when Spurrier was coaching, Spurrier, had his tough days up there in Saturday in Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
So there's like a little pest, like a fly or a mosquito or something bothering you. It's going to be tough. Their schedule is going to be brutal.
Of course.
But you know what? It's brutal for everybody.
It is. It is.
We're playing big boy football. You go good home games. That's what you're going to get.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say about Vanderbilt. I've got 4 quads here, and it's pretty simple. I got it broken down into which teams look like they could win, a lot of games and ones that don't. Excuse me. And one of the quads there, and of course, is the teams that will win 4 or fewer games, perhaps. And so that's where I've got Vanderbilt at this point in time, and don't see a lot of hope for them doing better than that. Do you?
No, probably not. But again, they'll have that one game where they, make it difficult for somebody to shoot. They've given Georgia games in the past too. I mean, they are the thorn in the side every once in a while, or that flying around mosquito that every once in a while bites you. Who else do you have in that quad though?
All right. So I've got what I've got here. Quad 4. I've got South Carolina, Mississippi State, Arkansas, and Vanderbilt.
Okay. I mean, I guess you got to put 4 in a quad, but I see a scenario where at the very least South Carolina and Arkansas win more than 4 games potentially. I mean, both of those teams were decently talented last year. Florida should have beaten Arkansas, but they didn't. And there was a scenario where South Carolina could have beaten Florida last year. But that's, that you are a tough conference when that's your bottom quad.
Yeah, I don't know how it breaks down in terms of numbers.
Sure.
Wins, I just put 4 arbitrarily in there. And then the next quad up would be Group 3.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be Texas A&M, Auburn, Florida, and Kentucky.
Yeah.
And you might say, well, yeah, Kentucky, Auburn, yeah. But you know what? Show me. That's the group that I think could win 6 or 7 games.
That whole group can, and that is a show me group. Every team in that has the ability to win several games next season, but will they?
Yeah, that's the question. Will they? And we'll see there. But all right, so quad 2, I have 8 to 9 wins. It could be more, but that's the number I use. LSU, Missouri, who a lot of people think should go in quad 1, Oklahoma, and Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
Any problems with any of those teams?
No, I don't have any issues with those. I think that Tennessee, the last multiple years, we have finished the season strong. And so then we've been really high on them to start the season. And then they've started the season slow. And I think that happens pretty routinely for them. And so then again, by the end, we're fooled into like, oh, this team's going to be a good team. Mm-hmm. And then it all starts over again each year with underperforming in the beginning. So I could see an argument for Tennessee to be in either quadrant. But I mean, that quadrant's good.
You just got so many spots.
You do.
Now you play each other. Somebody you're going to have to lose some games to good teams.
Yeah.
And if any of the quad 4 teams win anything, that screws everything up, right?
Yes.
And of course, this is what we got for quad 1. Obviously, Georgia, Texas, Alabama, and Ole Miss.
Yeah.
You got any problems with any of those teams being in quad 1?
I don't have any problems with those. I mean, I'm really hoping that Texas gets a wonderful SEC welcome and they don't finish in that quadrant. But, to start the season, I'm all right with you putting them there.
I think a lot of people got them right in there behind Georgia. So,
I think they're incredibly talented. I think that they are in for a little bit of a rude awakening playing the level of competition that they're going to be playing every single week. And I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe their talent overcomes that, but
a lot of people think that too. And a lot of people say, I know, Rob, you've been on his show, Rob
Yeah.
Brown. He says, he has a friend who told some folks back when they joined the SEC in Arkansas, it's different. It's like playing Texas every weekend or whatever.
Yeah.
And you're playing. I have a term I coined years ago. I'm sure others have thought of similar ones, called residual impact.
Okay.
That's when you keep getting hit, like in a boxer, keep getting hit, you keep getting hit. The SEC has residual impact, where you just keep getting hit, you keep getting hit, and that by the time you get through your first 8 or 9 games, that has that's a factor, like a prize fighter, right?
And that's why, you might have a top team from another conference beat your team in the bowl game or something like that, because everybody else's ones and the SEC's ones, maybe there's not that big of a difference there. But line up the 2s and the 2s and the 3s and the 3s, and the SEC begins to completely dominate because it's a deeper conference, because you have to have a deeper roster to survive in this conference. And, I don't know. There is a reason Texas A&M and Missouri have never won the SEC. I understand that they're not Texas and Oklahoma, and those are 2 big boys for sure that we have joining. But this conference is not a cakewalk. And if Texas hasn't been able to dominate the Big 12, I know they won last year, but they have not been able to routinely dominate the Big 12 for a very long time. So why in the world are we thinking they're going to suddenly come and dominate a conference that's better?
I'm with you on that. A lot of people think you got the quarterback and good enough to get Arch Manning benched of the year. They've got Sark. They're supposed to have really good linemen.
Yeah.
I really can't say. I haven't seen him play enough. But
they're not in any way taking anything away from that. I mean, they've got the athletes. They recruit well. They know how to win. I just think the depth is going to, and that every single week getting up is going to be an adjustment.
Did I not explain the quadrant thing well enough?
No, you did. You did a good job.
What is all this quadrant?
Well, Michael might have hopped on while you were after you had explained it, but essentially it's rankings, right? Group 1 through group 4 of how you would kind of finish, see where these teams
put them in pods, right?
Yeah.
And you think, well, what are they like? I mean, I would say there's some here, like some would say Missouri belongs in the first quadrant because they're really predicting great things. But who do you knock out? I don't know.
Yeah.
I would tend to take Ole Miss over right now.
Yeah.
So you start thinking, but then where do you put them? It's like going to a house and putting furniture in it. You only have so many spots you can put places. Anyway, just a thought of mine, and I'm going to stick with it till I prove. Michael says he came on late. Okay, Michael, that's what it's about. It's nothing. It's just a concept. It's a thought I have. No big deal. And just my thing. I would give me your quick assessment. I'll wait for Tony Barnhart. About where Florida's recruiting stand. Have they edged up a little bit in the last few months?
Yeah. So, I mean, if you're looking at where they're ranking in as a class right now for 2025, it's not great. I want to say it's in the 70s. I think that Florida will finish much higher. I think that there's a lot of recruits in a wait and see mode. If you remember last June, like the 3rd weekend of June, we got, I want to say it was 8 or 9 commitments that one weekend. That was crazy. And we held most of them, but not all of them. I do think that there is a lot of players that want to see what the product looks like on the field this year before they commit. I know that there are a lot of guys that Florida's talking to on a very regular basis that want to be Gators. But if you're in these high school kids positions, you want some kind of reassurance, right? That your coach is going to be there, right? And that like you're still going to fit into whatever the new system is if your coach isn't there. So I think that wait and see mode is reasonable. But I do think if the Gators can come out strong, they'll get commitments by October.
I saw several comments from recruits, I think on Twitter, saying I'm really anxious to see if Florida can win some games. I think win some games this year would make a lot of difference in my decision. I want to see there's some evidence there. And I'm comfortable saying that Billy will win 6, maybe 7 games. I do think they've corrected some of their mistakes, simple ones like number of players on the field. They've improved their special teams. They certainly improved their secondary and their safety play. And obviously, Ron Roberts has made a difference in defense. If you just, and Brady says this all the time, Shane says this all the time, that if they just take 3 stops a game, what a game changer that would be for Florida.
Yeah. I mean, think about Florida was this close in probably 3 games this year, in Arkansas and Missouri and even Florida State, right? You have, I don't even know that you need 3 stops. Arkansas and Missouri, you need 1, right? Mm-hmm. 1 stop and you win those 2 games. But if you are looking at an 8-win season, we're not having all of these conversations that we're having this offseason. We're not concerned about recruits needing to wait and see or anything like that. I mean, the difference between a winning record and a losing record for Florida this year was maybe 5 plays total, which is crazy to think about. But I also think that means we could show some serious improvement record-wise relatively easy, right? Get a few more stops. Let's call it 3 a game. Execute on special teams and do a little bit better in that middle 8, the last 4 minutes of the first half and the first 4 minutes of the second half. You're talking about an 8 or 9 win team.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. You have a lot of friends who travel in important circles around the money and things that happen there. And do they detect a different attitude around the Gators and around Billy and about the program? And is he a little more? Is he a lot more confident? I keep hearing you don't know what to hear, third, fourth hand stuff without hearing from Billy. But what are you picking up? What is your intelligence picking up?
So this is a hard one for me because, and this is no offense to any of our big boosters at all, but unless they're a big booster that played football in college, in the pros, something like that, I think it's somewhat easy for a coaching staff to sell you on like, oh my God, the locker room's all in. These players are all in. And so you hear that and you want to be excited and you take that and you run with it. I think that's maybe different than like former players going out and evaluating what it is that they see versus what they've seen elsewhere and whatever else. But I do think that inside that building, they are very excited. I think Napier is excited about what he is going to put on the field. I think our players are excited. The stuff that gets me, makes me a little bit excited is when guys admit, like Graham Mertz did this past week, where he said, in hindsight, I don't think we had that killer instinct, that winning mindset last year because we do have it now. So last year, he may not have realized they didn't have it, right? He just knows what the locker room feels like while he's in it, and he thinks it feels good. And then I think this year he sees such a difference, and he's like, oh man, this is what it feels like. And it feels so different that makes me hopeful. It makes me think we've made moves in a positive direction.
What about the coaching changes? Which one impressed you the most? And which one will make the biggest difference?
So I think Ron Roberts is going to make the biggest difference. I think everything that we have heard is just that he is a hard-nosed football coach that expects excellence. And I think that is something this locker room needed. I think this is something this defense needed. I think it's really great for Austin Armstrong because you've got, your mentor to kind of help you come along too, because you are green, right? Incredibly talented, but incredibly green. I also like the Joe Houston hire. I know that Napier will tell you publicly that there was nothing wrong with Florida's special teams last year at all. And, those of us that care about special teams feel very gaslit kind of by that. But I think that by hiring Joe Houston, that is Coach Napier saying, I know my special teams needed help last year. And, maybe he doesn't want to throw players under the bus, or he doesn't want to throw individual coaches under the bus or something. But that hire tells me he understands that special teams were a problem last year. So I think the two of those are huge. I think Ron Roberts will have the biggest impact because defense is going to have a bigger impact than special teams is, even though I think special teams are also important. But everything out of Auburn was that Ron Roberts was loved by his players and he was a difference maker. So I expect a lot of the same in our locker room.
Refresh us, because it's been a long time and a lot of different faces. A little bit more about Joe Houston and tell us who he is and how he arrived here. And was he there from Patriots?
Yeah, he came from the Patriots. He's been a special teams guru kind of all over the NFL is my understanding. And I think that, Florida had essentially analysts, right, working as a special teams coach last year. That's not generally the way we're used to special teams working at the University of Florida. Prior to Coach Napier, there was a specific special teams coach. Now, generally, he might be coaching another position as well, but you know who it was. You knew what their responsibility was. Florida has kind of been analysts and by committee, and it makes it harder to hold anybody accountable there, right? And I mean, we've had situations where like a Ron Zook or an Urban Meyer or a Will Muschamp, when they personally were in charge of special teams because they cared about it that much. So it is a change at Florida to not have a special teams coach that is overseeing. But Houston has NFL experience. I believe he was at Iowa State as well.
He was too, yeah.
I think this is somebody with a lot of experience, and I think he's going to force UF to make special teams a priority. You don't bring a guy in from the Patriots and then just tell him like, oh, we don't have a whole lot of time for special teams, so sorry about that. You bring him in because you want it to be a priority, and you want somebody with the knowledge to make it a priority leading that unit.
Yeah, and I think it felt like they were disorganized. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What we saw were some of the most egregious things, the simple problems that high school coaches.
Yeah.
And you wonder about that. Let me just stand by for a second. Let's bring this guy aboard, and we'll get right back to the program with you, Ali. And I want to say welcome to Tony Barnhart on the program. And Tony, how you doing? Good to see you.
I'm doing well. It's good to see everybody.
Hey, Tony, how are you?
Oh,
we
we're
see
doing
half
well.
of you, Tony. We can only see half of you.
Oh dear, how about that?
Yeah, there's Tony. There he
go.
is. Great. Yeah.
Well, it's good. It's good to be with you. It's good to see. Good to see you out there having such a good time. And listen, we're going to be. It's not very far before we're going to be in Dallas and talking about plays and all that. So it's going to be
football stuff, huh? Yeah.
Football stuff. Exactly right. So.
Yeah. Ali and I were having a good discussion here about she's coached me up on she's closer to the program than I am, about the coaching staff Florida had. And Florida's had a little bit of a run on recruiting. Now, it's not Georgia. They're not getting a bunch of 5-stars.
Right.
They get a player here and a player there. And now they broke one today. A guy. What high school did you go to, Ali?
He's from a high school out in Alabama.
Okay.
I'll have to pull up his.
Doesn't matter. It's Alabama, and Saban had him.
Yeah.
He was good at Saban.
Right.
He's a linebacker, running back, and his name is
Miles Johnson.
Miles Johnson. Not to be confused with Miles Graham, another linebacker.
We got a lot of Miles in that room now.
You got to get those miles, man, for sure. And I don't know how you look at it, Tony. There's so much to keep up with. I mean, holy man.
I don't pay attention to recruiting until the young man is on campus.
Yeah,
you can talk to him then. Get maybe call a friend of mine who does a little bit in recruiting, but I really don't follow it all that closely. Now, if the guy's 5-star and has done this and that, and that's fine. But the fact of the matter is that you see him get cured. You see him. My point is, I don't overrate recruiting. I sort of bring him and have a little coaster, and it's I don't spend a whole lot of attention on guys until they get on campus.
You're old school, Tony. Let's be honest about it. And you're old school.
exactly what my husband says. He's like, I'm not spending any time talking about any high school kids. Let me know when they're on campus.
Different times here. Get with the times. High school kids are getting the NIL deals now, Tony.
They are.
Don't you have a list of NIL deals being made by
Oh
Georgia?
yeah, that's exactly right. No, I don't pay a whole lot of attention to that part of the game, and it's people get all excited about being up there and have, he's got 5 stars and he does this and does it, and I don't pay much attention to it at all.
Like that shirt, is that anything to do with your book? It's green, isn't it?
This is black, and this is Mrs. Barnhart got this for me not too long ago, and very, very, very comfortable.
Best college football up in your wardrobe a little bit.
Oh, listen, I couldn't dress myself at all without Mrs. College football. I mean,
most guys like that.
The conversation always begins with, "You're going to wear that?" And I said, "Well, yes, I am going to wear that." I said, "Well, no, you're not going to wear that. You need to back off a little bit." So,
and what about Eric? Did you pick out his clothes, or does he do himself?
For the most part, Eric is pretty into his own look, right? He does it. I can pick out stuff I know he will like, but I don't generally have to tell him how to dress because he's very very into that himself.
Most punters and kickers have their own little flair.
Yes.
Sure. Well, they have all that extra time, during practice to worry about. Eric used to play punt golf. And Meyer used to let families come and watch practice on, I believe it was Tuesdays. And we would go out and he'd be on that third field because, of course, this is before, the indoor practice facility. They'd be out on that third field playing punt golf. And I'd always be like, I came for like your 15-minute special teams period at the beginning. And then I watched you play a stupid game for the last 3 hours.
Yeah. And by the way, you're looking at a woman who completely undermined Urban Meyer's entire champions program. When the whole story you told me, Urban came there so strict with his new champions program. And if you were a champion, you got you got the first to eat first. You got like everything. If you weren't, you're a dog, and you got nothing.
Hot dogs.
Yeah, hot dogs is all you got. And Eric was injured and had surgery and missed some time, so he didn't make the champions table. He was groaning about it, and I couldn't believe he didn't get steak. So he goes home, and of course, here comes Miss Allie bringing him a steak.
He was so mad because in his mind, he'd put in all this additional work because he'd been rehabbing this knee. And Meyer did loosen up on that with injuries in subsequent champions clubs. But this was the very first one. So he was trying to prove a point, which I can tell you, Eric Wilbur did not ever miss another champions club after that. So I would assume that, he made his point. Absolutely. And now here we are 20 years later still talking about it. So clearly this mind game had impacts.
It did. Guys, let me just say one thing, and then I want to get into my quadrant teams with Tony, as we did the first part of the program. It's coming up next week. We're going to start breaking down the new Sweet 16, Tony. It's going to be fun. You start thinking about who's going to be at the top, who's going to be at the bottom, and you start grouping teams. I group 4 groups of 4. And when you start saying who goes and who stays, who's in this quadrant, who should be there, and so who do you take out? It's kind of interesting. Stand by. We'll come back to that first. Let me tell folks about my fine sponsor, Meldon Law. Jeffrey Meldon. Talked to him last week. He's in Europe for a while, but the law firm is still running well, and his son's doing all the work, which usually is the case with him. So just to remind folks that if you need a lawyer, you should check out Meldon Law. They are the official law firm of the Florida Gators, and nobody's a bigger fan of the Gators than Jeffrey Meldon. Meldon Law, they won't back down. Back to the quadrant system with Ali. We're trying to figure out how to embrace these all 16 teams. What do you start with? How do you do it? How do you break it down? Tony, when you look at the 16 teams and you start breaking down the conference, where do you start?
I always start on the offensive line. I just think everything starts and begins with the offensive line. And if they've got more than 2 people coming back, if they got 3 or more people coming back, I like that a lot.
Okay.
And to me that is the key. Is how many look at your roster, how many people do you have coming back on the offensive line, and I want to see how well you do there. That's very intriguing.
Help me out here. Ali and I went through this earlier. Ali, you can change your mind if you want to.
Okay.
Broke them down by 4 quads. A team, top 4, obviously. I'm going to start backwards. You can probably pick out the 4 teams that you think will be the least effective and win the fewest games. I put an arbitrary number, I don't know, 4 or fewer games. Here are my 4. Vanderbilt, Arkansas, Mississippi State, and South Carolina. Is there anybody in there, Tony, that shouldn't be?
That's a pretty good guess, because I think Mississippi State might be looking in, but I think it's going to be an interesting year for them. They need some more players up front, and I think they're going to do that. And the issue is here on the cell on the bring it to the cell. It's incredible.
Well, the deal is that these 4 teams, and really we get right down to it, as the question is, it's the age-old question we've asked for 50 years, Tony. Does Vanderbilt really belong in the SEC? And you can say yes or say no. I say yes. What you say, Tony?
I say yes. I mean, obviously, you have in Vanderbilt, you've got somebody who's dedicated a lot to the university. Now, are they gonna win a championship anytime in our lifetime? No, they're not. But I think they make a great contribution. But I will say this: I think as we move forward, we need to have a conversation about some of these schools and how they look, and they have teams that are given. They need. My point is they need to step up to the plate, buddy. They need to have your.
Let's see some evidence.
Yeah, show it to us. You prove it. Yeah. Okay. And I know it's tough, but I think we're talking about a lot of money. Okay, when those checks come in for the money that's coming in, that's going to be
amazing.
Really, it's going to be amazing how many. I mean, you're talking, buddy. You're talking maybe about $80 to $90 million when all is said and done, and so those schools are going to have to show us what they can do.
All right. Anybody you think could break out of there? Those 4, where they're going to go, I don't know. I don't think Ali sees anybody. She's okay with that bottom 4, aren't you, Ali?
Yeah. Yeah, I am.
Let's go up and say, well, who's going to be, threatening? Well, you got the group 3, quad 3. I've got 6 to 7 wins. Texas A&M, Auburn, Florida, and Kentucky.
Yeah, I'm anxious to see what Auburn's going to do. I really am. I think they have done the second year under Hugh Freeze. They've done pretty well, and I think it's going to be an interesting look when they have it. So I'm anxious. I am anxious to see, is Auburn going to beat somebody, buddy, that they're not supposed to beat? To me, that's your marker. That's your marker.
And then you have to say who they replace. The group above them in group 2 is LSU, Missouri, Oklahoma, and Tennessee. Which one of those you want to knock out?
Right.
I mean, some people say Missouri might belong in quadrant 1. I'm not ready to put them there yet. This is the 8 to 9 win group.
Right.
Anybody there you want to knock out, Tony?
I don't think so. I like that group. I like that group.
And Alice said she was okay with it. And finally, the obvious teams are Georgia, Texas, Alabama, and Ole Miss. You might argue the bottom two, Alabama or Ole Miss. I think Alabama's going to be just fine. Tony, do you think so?
I think Alabama's going to be just fine as well. They have the talent. They have the talent. When you sit there and look at who they've got coming back, who they've got on the line of scrimmage, I think they will do just fine.
All right, Tony, I'm going to let you go. I know you got SEC Media Days next week, and you got things to do, and it sounds like you're battling a cold right now.
I'm afraid so.
Feel better, my friend. Thanks for being on the program with us, and we'll catch up again after the SEC Media Days.
All right, guys. It's always good to be with you. Take care.
Great, Tony Barnhart. Thank you, Tony. Appreciate it.
Bye.
All right, folks. I just want to remind you that stand by. We'll have our buddy Kyle on here in 1 second. We'll get Tony back to get his milk and cookies. And remind you, folks, that our program is also brought to you by our fine sponsors, including Red Star Medical Research and TitanMRI.com. TitanMRI.com. If you need some kind of Ali, have you ever heard of this place?
I have, from your show.
Yeah, and they do some kind of amazing things. If you've had, I've not been there, but I know enough about it. When you go for an MRI, there's some things that you don't like, and claustrophobia is one of them.
Yeah.
Getting a little thing like that and going that tube back and forth. One of the things they do at Titan, which I think I like a lot, they made it more comfortable, more spacious in those places for you, and so you won't get claustrophobia. And you say, well, it's so darn expensive, and I have to go during my work hours. I can't get off. Well, guess what? They will actually make a customized appointment for you in night, weekends, whatever. If you can't go during your work hours, you say, but I don't have insurance. Well, no insurance. You can use a card or you can use cash if you want to, or a check. But they make it possible for you to do it. And it's not terribly expensive. So those kind of things. So check them out. If you need an MRI, check them out, TitanMRI.com. Ali.
So, buddy, I was just sitting here thinking, and I just looked up the schedules, and I want to switch Missouri and Texas in the top.
Really?
I'm going to tell you why. Because
wow. What did you say? You're knocking Texas down, but Missouri in?
Yep, and I'm going to tell you why. All right, so I'm going to go through their schedule, Missouri's schedule this upcoming year. Hold on, so they open with Murray State. That's a win.
Okay.
And Buffalo, win 2. Boston College, I think that's win 3.
Yeah.
Vanderbilt, win 4. Texas A&M. If we're putting Missouri in the second quadrant, Texas A&M in the third one, that's probably a 5th win for Missouri. Then they play UMass.
Yep.
Then they play Auburn, which we also have them in a higher quad than Auburn.
There you go.
Let's play Alabama. So let's call Alabama a loss. So you're sitting at 8 games in, but you've got 7 wins. Yeah. Then they play Oklahoma. We can go ahead and call Oklahoma a loss too. So now they're 9 games in with 7 wins.
Okay.
Then they play South Carolina. That's 8.
Lower quadrant.
What?
Another lower quadrant.
Yep. Then they play Mississippi State.
Another lower quadrant.
Then they play Arkansas.
Another lower quadrant.
That's 10 wins without them upsetting anybody on their schedule.
Gosh, you're right. And you're right. It's not just about who's good or who deserves this. I could win 10 games with a schedule like that.
Correct. So now we look at Texas's schedule. So they open with Colorado State. We'll call that a win.
Okay.
Michigan, week 2. That's going to go either way, but I mean, Michigan could win. Then they have the USTSA or the UTSA, so we'll call that a win. Yeah. Louisiana Monroe, we'll call that a win. Mississippi State, so now we're at 4 wins. Yeah. But then they got to play Oklahoma. Then they got to play Georgia. That's a rival and Georgia. So I mean, that's a little dicey. They play Vanderbilt. They play Florida. So let's say they beat both of them. They play Arkansas, Kentucky. Then they close with Texas A&M too. I think there's a better chance Texas has 3 losses and Missouri has 2 losses.
That's a great point, Ali. Good find by you. Thank you for that. That was terrific. Yes. And this is what the nuances of the schedule are.
Yeah.
Think about, well, this team's got this guy, but the schedule is everything, especially now. And if you can get to 10 wins, you might be in the national playoff picture.
You probably are, which is crazy.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So, wow. Amazing. That's good stuff. Ali, on the case, Good job. We have on the case. Here's the guys on the case. A hard-working intern. He's breaking stories right and left. He's got his series out on the Sweet 16, and he's also following up Ali and her story about the new recruit. Kyle Curtis. What's up, Kyle?
How we doing? How we doing, guys? Massive fan of your work, Ali. I love following along with all your stuff. So another Wednesday night. Happy to be here. Glad the Wi-Fi was working for you tonight. Internet's back up.
Yeah, man. I'll tell you what, that sucked, but it's good to have you. Supposed to have you on last night and couldn't get you on. And Kyle's working on his series. He's got his first of 16 out tonight, and 16 is Vanderbilt. He's ranked that one through. Ali just made a great point. Did you hear what she said about we put these teams in quadrants? I did.
Yeah.
And she proved to me that one of the teams might be wrong because she compared the schedule of Missouri, who I had dropped down, and to Texas, and that really Missouri has a much more favorable schedule than Texas. So that changes that picture some, Kyle.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think if you're in, especially with today's playoff with 12 teams and you have 10 wins and, today's SEC, I think it would be criminal if you got left out. So I completely agree. And a lot with, this bigger conference, it's going to come year to year what your schedule is going to look like. And, it could be you could have a great team and go 8-4 in this SEC. So, I think that it just depends.
I was just pulling up LSU's, because I think LSU is LSU, right? And it's hard for me to wrap my head around them not being a top 4 team in the SEC, but they have a tough schedule. They open with USC. They play Alabama, they play Ole Miss, they play Oklahoma. I mean, those are potentially 4 losses right there, which it's hard to wrap your head around. LSU, looking at it and being like, oh, I see at least 4, but their schedule is really difficult. And that's a team that with an easier schedule, you would for sure put in the top 4, but I don't think you can.
Well, and I mean, if the past 3 to 5 years before we kind of had the conference realignment, the massive thing during the offseason was who could you bulk up your schedule? Who could you get in kind of the off-conference teams to get in there? And now you have a Texas team who necessarily doesn't need – they're in the SEC. They don't need to play Michigan to boost their resume. Just getting the 9 or 10 wins in the SEC kind of speaks volumes to itself. So now you're seeing the trend of, the 5 years of no more cupcake games, put those good teams in there, kind of backfiring on some of these bigger schools. I mean, if Florida played Utah this year.
LSU doesn't need USC anymore. They got USC and UCLA this year. I mean, they don't need either.
So it's ridiculous.
This would change. It's what we wanted, guys. It's what we wanted.
Yeah, I mean, it's what everyone asked for, but I think it's going to be cool, and I think that you're also kind of going to see. I was looking at Vanderbilt's schedule earlier. They have the Alcorn States of the world, so I think that you're going to, as the years progress, and people are going to start scheduling kind of those smaller conference schools again, and we're kind of going back to that. I don't want to say bye week, but week where you're kind of able to play your guys for a half and rest up before a Florida State or a rivalry weekend or something like that. It's the conference realignment is it affects not only the players on the field, but it affects ADs, it affects all the coaches, scheduling. So all of that goes into play. But that's why I think that the conference realignment and the 12-team playoff kind of coming at a perfect time, because I think that it's going to be very rare to find a undefeated SEC team or especially in these power conferences. It's just too hard week to week.
I mean, outside of last season, which was somewhat of an anomaly, we generally.
Oh no!
Uh-oh.
Oh no! We're having a smoke alarm. Someone's cooking.
Oh no!
I was like, you said my house? No.
I'll mute myself. I'm sorry.
Hope you don't have a dog.
Outside of last year, which was an anomaly, we don't generally get more than one undefeated team that comes through because college football was already hard. And so now I do think we're going to have a situation, unless it's, an ACC in its current state or something like that, where we don't get these undefeated teams anymore. But I'm good with that because we're watching great games. And your point about not needing to schedule really difficult out of conference games anymore, I think is important, because we've gotten to this situation where we were stopping to schedule those patsy teams, which I hate to refer to them as that, but those were awesome opportunity for those kids as well. They're playing in the Swamp, they're playing in Tiger Stadium, the Coliseum, places where they would not normally ever get the opportunity to play. And I kind of disliked the fact that those kids were missing out on those opportunities. So I do like the concept that we're going to be able to schedule those Elkhorn States of the world, those McNeese States, and give those kids the opportunity to play those massive games again.
To add on to that point as well, we're all good on the smoke alarm, by the way. But being able to play in those bigger kind of settings, playing on an ESPN, playing on an ESPN2 in today's era with the transfer portal, that might be the difference maker and put someone on someone's radar that you maybe would have never seen before, and giving these guys a chance. So that's just looking at the glass half full.
Yeah.
Yeah, a couple of things are happening. I think they're getting ready to announce in the next couple of years. Maybe next, they're going to go to 9 games in the SEC, though. That's going to have impact on that. If they do, they just cancel Cal Florida series, 2-game series scheduled for 26, 27. They cancel that.
I did see that.
So something's going on, Ali. What is it?
Well, I think the SEC will wait to determine if they're going to 9 games or not until they see what this playoff committee does with their 12 teams. Because if 9 games is going to hurt the SEC, then they're not going to do it. But if it's going to help the SEC, or maybe even not affect anything at all, I see them going to 9 games. But they want to wait and see what this committee is going to take into account when they pick their 12 teams, because what they don't want to do is make it so difficult that they're actually removing opportunities from their conference members. They want as many SEC teams in the playoff as possible.
Yeah, the Sweet 16 series Kyle's working on coming up. We're going to be able to break it down. By the way, here's a stat for you on Josh Heupel. Probably one of the more underrated coaches in the league. He has been a head coach at Tennessee for 3 full seasons and already produced more 1,000-yard wide receivers than Georgia has in the history of their program.
And Billy Napier beat him last year in Gainesville.
Yeah, there you go.
I mean,
so, and then one more little note. We all agree that Jack Caglianone should have been on at least on the list of Golden Spikes,
absolutely.
if not the winner. Here's the latest. Major League Baseball draft, according to D1 Baseball, the number 1 prospect in college baseball is Cags.
Shocking to no one but that committee.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's hard after that Omaha run, after the way that every single manager that played against him was basically scared of him. It's hard not to put him at the top.
Yeah.
Y'all getting all geeked up on the Olympics? I'm kind of looking forward. What is it, 34 athletes Florida has in there?
Yeah.
I saw Texas put out a stat that said we have 37, the most in the nation. But then I looked into it, and they're counting 7 coaches that they're sending there as well in this out, which I'm pretty. And Mouse is going, right, and I think our swim team is going, like Nestie's going. There, I mean, there's UF has coaches going as well. We just weren't counting that in our total that we.
And if I'm not mistaken, Katie Ledecky, I believe, trains at Florida.
She does,
and she's not even counted. Is she? Probably, I don't think she's went to
that because she didn't graduate. But I mean, she's training at UF currently and coaching.
Right.
I guess she could count as the coaching category there.
Yeah. We'll take we'll honor her gold medal as a Gator.
Hey, listen, I love every year when the Olympics happen, because we talk about how UF could be its own country and would have more athletes than like all but 50 places or something.
100%. Which
is pretty cool. I love the Olympics. It's I don't know. It's a great time of year.
Okay.
It's gonna be hard because it's in France, so it's like all of the prime.
Now you tell me. I didn't know that.
All the primetime events are going to be at like 6 a.m. So
So
it's going to be odd.
I'm kind of excited about that a little bit because women's gymnastics, the team finals and then the all-around finals are going to be between 11:30 and 3:30 in the afternoon. And I have massive gymnastics fans. So this is kind of awesome because I don't have to worry about letting them stay up till midnight or waking up at 4 a.m. or anything like that. Like 11:30 to 3:30, we're all awake at that time anyway. That is prime kid time. I'm excited about that.
No summer camp that week.
We're in the mountains that week. So I'm like, dear God, our house better have great TV service.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
That thing with the delayed is, don't worry, you'll see in prime time the big matches, even if there are in the morning. So that's how they do that thing. They videotape it. All right. Surprise, surprise. Trevi Etienne's DUI in Georgia has been lifted.
Oh wow. I didn't see that. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Did you see what Mike Gundy said at the
I
think it's the Big 12, but it was their I forget the name, but their star running back got a DUI and he was like, "Oh, I've done that 1,000 times." And I'm like, are we really out here supporting DUIs?
But I think the thing that Mike Gundy does masterfully is takes the negative attention off of his players and puts it directly on himself, because nobody's talking about the player anymore. We're all talking about the asinine statement he made about, I've done this 1,000 times. And essentially what he was saying was that what he blew was equivalent to 3 or 4 drinks or something like that. And he feels like he's had 3 or 4 drinks.
4 beers, it's right in there,
Yeah, but it shifted focus. And now this is what we're talking about, which I do think, that's how I'm a man, I'm 40. That's how Mike Gundy is, right? Like he's the best at that.
I know that made me feel old. That video, I guess, is 16 years old. I saw it. I was scrolling through Instagram, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" I was in Ted Spiker's class 4 years ago, and he played that video for us, and I was like, he was like, "Yeah, this is only," and I'm like, "Oh my gosh!" I remember when I saw that on SportsCenter as like a little kid. It was just crazy. I'm like, "Dang, man."
Well, how about this? I wasn't a little kid when that was shown. Even more.
Nor was I. All right, here's a little. I like these little historical thumbnails. Not anything newsworthy. When you go back and look at the stadium, you look at what year it was built, how big was it, and so on. So today's one's on Florida, and it goes through. And opened as Florida Field 1930, nicknamed now the Swamp, expanded 7 times since 1930. By the way, more Gator fans are upset about the stadium being enlarged than they are about the NIL programs. At least what I talked to. How big, here's a trivia question for you two young wizards. How many seats did Florida Field have when it opened in 1930?
Was it something like 27,000 or something? I don't know. Not a lot.
Kyle?
I'm going to go 16,700.
Now I got to do math. I think it was 22, so Ali wins.
Oh, right. We're right in the middle.
Yeah.
Kind of. You beat me a little.
Okay.
Yeah. The record, by the way.
Yeah.
What's the record?
Did you see the interview with Strickland this week and talking about?
What's that about?
So I didn't watch or listen to all of it, but essentially the gist of it is that there's no projects going on right now, which we've hired an architecture company. So I don't know how that can be a truthful statement. 1, 2, that 80% of his time is spent raising money for NIL.
Right. I saw that.
So unless he's working 5 hours a week, I don't know how that.
I think he did say focus. He did say our focus. As I remember the quote I used in my column. 80% of our focus, whatever that means. I don't know. But the point is still the same. Yeah. Well, it's about the money. We all know that. And
but if nobody wants it, I don't even understand. I get it. You might be able to lure a couple more big dollar boosters, but if 80% of your fan base, that's probably way lowballing. Let's say 95% of your fan base has no interest in the things that you're looking at. And I don't know, buddy, if you looked at the survey when it went out, but it went out to season ticket holders. It was like, would you prefer a party deck where it's, you know, $50,000 to get in, or would you prefer, you know, a helicopter ride over the stadium for $150,000? I mean, it was absurd. There was no like, hey, what is the average family looking for? It was true.
The average family can't afford to be Gator fans.
Would you like on the field seats, luxury box? Would you like party deck? Would you like, I mean, all of the things are absurd, and they're all ripping out massive sections of seats to do the things that they're talking about.
It's going to be nothing but you know, private boxes all over the stadium.
Yeah.
It's all about
It's so short-sighted is what it is, because you know where your big ticket booster is. They're the 6-year-old at the field that catches a wristband from Graham Mertz and then keeps it for 40 years. You know, you want to keep this going forever and ever.
That's over. That's over.
Kids as fans, and you ruin that when you know, have to be worth $1 million to get inside the stadium.
Listen, it's just like what happened to the media. Not that the media is that important, but when I started covering this team, and for the next 40 years, my parking pass was north end zone. Now, I'm not saying whether we were worth it or not. That's what it was, because the media was important to Florida back then.
Mm-hmm.
Helped shape the program.
Yeah.
Gradually, they started moving us out, a block away, a block away, a block away. Now we're in the shuttle. Now we're a half a mile away. And why? Because they can sell all those spots.
Mm-hmm.
Money it's the old golden rule. You know, you got to go, you rule. And so the media is not that important anymore, because they have their own spin cycle, their own media, their own deal. So they don't really need to be nice. They'll give you a box lunch instead of a full meal. It's just not that I'm complaining. Probably the way it should be, whatever. It's all changed, and it's not about the kids wanting wristbands. It's about the big donor getting them to spend $20,000 more. That's what it's about. Anyway, not to leave on an unfortunately downward note, because it's football season, guys. Next week it's SEC Media Days. Name me one storyline that you think you might see coming out of SEC Media Days. I'll go first. Okay. No more Nick Saban. All right. Who wants to go next?
Texas. Texas will not stop talking about Texas.
Mm-hmm.
I think that everyone's going to be talking about the new college football game. That's kind of what's going on right now. So I know I'm excited to play it. It's the first one in I think 11 years.
Really?
So I'm sure that there'll be a lot of questions on what do you think your rating is? What do you think about all that? So I know the ratings came out today, and Florida didn't have one player in the top 100.
If they had one, it would have probably been.
Is that more motivating to these teenage guys that are about to suit up for us than pretty much anything else? Like
everyone was like quoting the tweet, and was like, "Oh my gosh, like I should." They were being little babies about it, and I'm like, you got to go show it. You can't be under 500 and expect an above 90 rating.
All the negative quotes all over the locker room, and like I hope Napier's going and printing out everybody's rating and sticking it all over the locker room.
Yeah. You have a 66 rating.
Oh,
because this is terrible. Or are you going to show us something else?
Right. Yeah. Ali, thank you so much for going the full hour with us tonight. Glad to have you back on the air again. And Kyle, great to see you. And thanks to Tony as well. Guys, good show. Good job. Let's crank it up. It's time, right?
Yes. Go Gators. Have a great night, guys.
Good night, guys. Thank you very much.
Have a good night.
Night, Ali and Kyle. All right. I want to thank our sponsors tonight again. Once again, let me thank, I said earlier tonight, talking about Meldon Law, who does a terrific job, and TitanMRI.com, and of course, Rinstar Medical Research. We saved to the last because there's such professionally strong people who support their entire community and also look after our health. And they want you to know they got your back on that. They try to continually do these clinical research projects to find out better ways to treat what ails us. And they do these clinical research trials, take the data, they assimilate it, send it off to biomedical companies, and find out how to train you how to treat us with the specific deals that go on with our bodies and our issues in health. So if you want to be a part of this, go to the website, rentstar.net. Find out. You can be compensated for time and travel if you would like to join, if you get picked. And you might get some special medications and devices not otherwise gotten. Rentstar Medical Research, seeking tomorrow's answers to the health questions of today. Thanks very much, folks, for listening and watching. We'll be back here tomorrow night for our final show of the week. We'll have Orange and Blue Bloods. Our buddy Ben True will be in the house. Also, tomorrow night we'll have Scott. Scott Carter on to tell us what he saw, his recent venture out. Always good to have Scott, and he gets ready for football season as well. Have a great night, folks.